Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about stress management. Actually, we're talking about burnout and how to try to prevent burnout by managing your stress. Yeah. So, this is something that I think so many of us deal with. And it's something that I've even talked about on the podcast before, but it bears repeating and doing another episode on it because I think, well, I know that this is something that is at the forefront of people's minds today. It's something that we're really struggling with, really struggling with how to manage the stress in our lives and how to try to not get burned out.
Well, we're so busy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's a product of when we are.
We're so busy that every time we go to take a vacation that I think we're both looking forward to, the days prior to going on vacation, I almost feel like it's not even worth going on vacation because there's so much work to get done before going. Now, when we're sitting on that plane or in the car, we're, excited and already in relaxation mode, but that's telling that it's like, oh, it doesn't even worth going because I have to try to send these emails, wrap this stuff up before I leave. Now I got to pack and I have to think about that. And I don't want to think about, for me, it's like filling up my 3-ounce bottles of liquids and what do I have, what I don't have, what do I got to run to Walmart, Target for, what am I packing? It's just all it's a lot. And it feels like let's just stay home, which
Yeah.
we don't. I'm glad we don't. But that's a sign of stress.
Yeah. And those last days, you're like working. I mean, it's not an 8-hour, 9-hour day.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
those days are long
You're working
days,
overtime.
well into the night.
Yep.
Because not only are you trying to get stuff wrapped at work, but then you've got all the things that you need to do to prep
Yeah.
for your trip.
So I want to say that I think that I know that this is not easy to do. I see it in you, in your stress, and you can tell me, Tim, how you manage it, but I see it in you because I wouldn't say you kind of get in a bad mood. You're irritated. You're irritated easily when you are stressed. You're impatient and you're a really patient person, but it comes across and you're like moving quickly, but you're irritated by just everything annoys you. The dogs annoy you.
Yeah.
Really everything annoys you.
Yeah. I think because I know what needs to get done, and I've got these timestamps in my head, and any little thing added to that
Right.
or that takes me off that trail slows me down. And it's not like I still have to go to bed right at some point, but that stuff still has to get done.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it's 10:30, now
Yeah.
it's 11, now it's 11:30, and it's like,
Right.
okay, still have to get the stuff done. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's what gets me going. It's like, oh, come on. I got to get these things done now,
Right. So so I think it's important let's go through the list of, best practices around managing your stress and trying to prevent yourself from going into burnout. Um, Number one is to set those clear boundaries. Really do your best. And I know this is hard to set boundaries around your work life and your personal life. So, clearly define when work begins and when it ends each day to avoid being overextended. And I think that's something that I've seen you struggle with. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
You're overextended.
Yeah.
And you don't have clear boundaries around, when you come home from work. Sometimes you're still working, and I think that this is so true for many of us. You're texting someone from work. You're at home now and you're sending emails, you're a lot of texting. So work hasn't really ended. So you're really not, you're physically in your home, but mentally you're back at work.
Yeah. Yeah. You're completely still dialed in.
Yes.
And it's probably, as I'm starting to think about
not
this
every
now,
day, not every day,
no,
but,
not every day.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, so going into a vacation, and now I'm thinking it in terms of an employee and also a manager, like how great is it if you as a manager can like let your person go for a week or two, right? Let them go. And there's going to be things that you're going to want to talk to them about or feel like you need to talk to them about, but don't do it. Let
Yeah.
those things wait until you get back. Or cover up for them, right?
Well,
Take their get their back, cover them up,
or
and handle it.
can you have boundaries around being texted while you're on vacation from your boss or your colleagues and not text them back because they know you're on vacation?
I think it depends on the context of the position that you're in. I think in certain instances, yes, like
Yeah.
your responsibility level is at a certain point where it's like, if you don't respond, it's not the end of the world, right? But if you've got a job where it's like you're in charge of a lot of different things and maybe a lot of different people, and no one's jumping in to grab your stuff for you while you're gone, then there's this part in the back of your head that's like, ooh, I don't really want to respond to this, but like that's the right thing to do.
Does it stress you out?
Well, it doesn't allow me. I don't know that it stresses me, but it
Okay.
doesn't allow me to chill, right? It
It
doesn't.
does not allow you to chill out
Correct. Yeah,
completely.
yeah, because you're
Yeah.
still like, "Oh, there's
You're
this one
yeah,
thing now," and
we're on
somebody
vacation.
yeah,
We're
I'm
far
like
from it. Yeah.
500 miles away, and somebody's asking me to do
2,000
this
miles
or
away.
yeah,
Right.
and you're being asked to jump into something when you know that somebody else could take care of that, they just need to step
Yeah.
out of their comfort zone maybe for a second.
So maybe that's you having to set clear boundaries with your employer.
Yeah, yeah,
Really, that's what this is about, is that this is an example of you needing to set boundaries.
yeah, and it's also a good reminder that, like, when my guys go on vacation, let them go. We'll handle everything for you.
Yeah.
And when you get back, if there's things that we need to change or fix or solve,
Yeah.
we'll do that when you get back.
I
We'll
have
see you in a week.
yeah, I mean, I have to say in the jobs that I've been in where I've been employed, where I've been salaried person, when I've gone on vacation, my bosses have been really respectful. I've never had that problem. Like when you were on vacation, you're on vacation and you never got called to handle anything because for me, it was always in a hospital actually. Um, and there were people who were covering your caseloads and they would never call you. So that was a great thing. You don't have that. So, yeah. Okay. So, this is the work life balance. So, this is a goal for you is to really work on those boundaries around I'm at home now. I'm on vacation now. I will not be responding to, your texts or your emails. You can set up that out of office, and I think you can do it with texting now too.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. I think that, something that is really important for us in setting clear boundaries around, managing stress in our lives is really going through a digital detox. And that's, we're hearing this all the time now from people in the coaching world, in the mental health world of, limiting our screen time, especially with work related devices. We're talking about you with your phone with work. I mean, you got to have time to recharge without digital distractions. And that's exactly what you're being distracted by your phone and by the texts that are coming in,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And for me, a digital detox, and I've done this, is to move away from looking at what my colleagues are doing. I was doing that more in the beginning of COVID 2020. I don't in 21, I don't do that actually at all anymore. I've gotten really good. When we did the episode on curating your social media feeds around mental health and performance and nutrition and fitness, I did all that. I did that, a couple of years ago. I really have curated my feed. So I don't, it's been really good for me mental health wise and stress wise, compare and despair. That's a big thought distortion. You're comparing yourself to what other people in the field are doing. I didn't do it before COVID, when I was in my brick and mortar office seeing therapy and coaching clients. And then during COVID, I started doing it because I was home. We were all home so much more and I had time on my hands. It was not good for me. So I've, really kind of made some major changes around that. I'm like, what am I doing here? This is crazy. I'm not doing this anymore. I never compared myself to my colleagues before. And why am I doing it now? So I went back to really setting those clear boundaries.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I was good at. We'll get into what I've been terrible at. Um, but that was one thing I've been pretty
Yeah.
good about.
I think so. One other thing I think we need to say is I think the lines have also gotten blurred because there's so much remote working going
Yes.
on.
Yes.
So,
Good point.
there's when are you not really air quotes on, right? Or expected to be on? I don't think that there's, to your point, set those limits maybe, but sometimes it's hard to because, like, let's say your day normally is 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 10 to 6 or whatever it is, but when you're working remotely, You might get up and start at 5 and be done by 2, or at least in your mind, but everyone else is still working,
Yeah, they
and
are.
they're reaching out to
Right.
you as if it's a normal. You're
Inappropriately so, I think, right? Unless you've told them that those are your work hours. If you're getting an email at 3 and you're like, "Well, I start working at 5," but do they all know that? Have you communicated that with them?
right.
In a way, that's a little bit different because I think that's clear communication with your colleagues and your coworkers, and you got the okay from your boss who can support you in that decision to work from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. because at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, those are technically still work hours. It's not really fair to your team to get upset if you're getting an email or can you get on a call at 3:30 because it's
True.
still
No,
work
it
hours,
absolutely
right?
right. Absolutely right. And I think the hard part is, like, trying to figure out as a remote worker when to be on,
Yeah.
right? What is the sweet spot for you? Because the part of being a remote worker is being able to work at your schedule, right? And get things done that you can't get done while you're actually in your location, your office. So maybe it's easier for you to get up early. Maybe it's easier for you to sleep in and get things done in the morning personally and then start your day at 11.
If you are a remote person.
Yeah.
I don't know that a lot of people can do that. If you have the liberty and the freedom to do that, wonderful. I think most people do need to get their computers turned on, and you need to start becoming available 8, 8:30, 9 a.m. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
think
very
everybody's world
nuanced.
is
Yeah.
a little bit different.
I
It's
I can't help but think about someone we know who is a remote worker, and we'll go over there um, for dinner. And I have noticed that everybody, it's like 5:30, 6, and this is a Friday, and that person is still in their office, or they come out and they say hello to us and they go back into their home office. And I have felt like, come on, like I have felt that way as a friend. Like I want to spend time with you. We're here at your home. I want to see you. I want to spend time with you, but they're not fully available. So
yeah.
as a friend on the other end of it, I know what it feels like and some not so much with you. You don't do it in that way. I think that it's just different when you're with friends and you go to their home to see them, and you can tell that they're only 50% there because they've got something else that's still going on. And it's not like they're closing a deal. I would understand that. It's almost like every time. And I don't
Yeah.
know. They listen to this podcast. They've never heard this before. They're going to say something to
Oh, they're
me.
they're listening. They're texting you right now, so
No,
it's
actually,
okay.
I don't think they listen to the podcast all the time. But
But you know what's you
But
have
that's
to.
okay. I mean, I think because 'cause I'm like, "Come on, like, you're done now. We're all here. There's,
Well,
like, 8 of us here. Come and be with your friends. Let's hang out. Let's, have a drink, and let's have some appetizers, and let's be friends and talk about life." But they're not, so I have noticed that over the past many years with this person. I think that they feel, and they're a high performer, and this is what goes along with high performance, top levels in the C-suite. They need to work. They need to be responding because they're also 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock at Central Time, Chicago. Okay, it's 7 o'clock on the East Coast. It's 4 o'clock in California, and they may be taking calls from other parts of the world. Maybe they're talking to Asia. So I do understand that. I think selfishly as a friend, I want them to come on, be here now, be present, be with us. It usually will take like an hour and then they shut things down and they're with us. But I have
Yeah.
noticed that.
Yeah, yeah. I think a fair question would be who's asking who to be on at 6, 7 o'clock on a Friday night? Like, are they being asked to be on, or are they choosing to be on?
Good question, and we don't know because we'd have to ask that person.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Is it poor time management?
Right.
And so we're getting into that. So, time management's on this list. So is it poor time management, or is it, that they really do have to be available because they got a call in Japan right now? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
Okay.
question.
So number one is really work on setting those clear boundaries. Number two is prioritizing your self care. This is how you deal with managing stress in your life. Is you got to have regular exercise. And that's like, I could, for those who listen to the podcast, you probably know, I mean, Tim and I drone on and on and on about it, but it is that important. You've got to have regular exercise. You've got to work on that balanced diet as best you can, and sleep. You got to get that sleep. My clients, when I was in my office, they used to always call me the sleep Nazi because I was crazy about them getting their sleep because especially with my clients who came to me with mood disorders, a type of different types of depressive disorders, I couldn't even really talk to them so much about treating their depression if they weren't getting great sleep. If you're getting 5 or 6 hours, okay, well, we got to work on that first because that can be and is contributing to depression. So, sleep, eating well, and that's just by making small changes of starting to get more fruits, and vegetables into your diet, not eating so much the processed crap, not mindlessly putting your hand in a bag of chips or whatever it might be, tortilla chips, Cheetos, whatever it might be. It's okay to have it, but just be try to be mindful of how much of that processed stuff you're putting in your body.
Right.
Okay. And I don't need to go on and on about this. You all know physical health is really important in managing your stress. And I went through it when I was it 2015 or 16 when I was seeing lagging performances in triathlon. And I hired a sports dietitian and I just sent her a 3-day log of all the things I ate. And she said to me, "You graze a lot." And I knew I was a grazer, but I was grazing on really yummy foods like carrots and hummus, and you're probably eating a lot of salsa and guac and probably doing it with chips. And she said, "You got to cut that stuff out." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" She's like, "You need to go back to 3 meals a day." And she gave me all kinds. That's why I love dietitians because I've worked with dietitians personally in my own life as an athlete. And I've always worked with dietitians with my oncology, my cancer patients, and my eating disorder patients. I've shared office spaces with them. I've listened to them on their consult calls. And I've learned so much by listening to them and hearing them give suggestions. I've listened to them in conferences about other foods that you can eat. And I always think it's so worth it for people to pay, buy a package, see a dietitian because they have just a plethora of ideas for you for whatever it is that you're going through in life, whether you want to get your mind right, get out of brain fog, you want to lose weight. For me, it was sports performance. And what my dietitian helped me with in getting me to 3 meals a day and choosing better foods was game changing in my performance in that year. Game changing, I'm telling you. I would not hit a wall when I would normally hit a wall. I could be at the 11th mile in the 11th hour and I could run up a hill versus before I'd get up the hill, but I'd be jogging and huffing and puffing and really struggling. It really was game changing in my performance and
Sure.
getting me on the
Yeah.
podium. So think of that is so important for you to think about managing your stress. If you're eating better, you're able to handle and manage the stress in your life. It doesn't shut you down. So that's important. Okay. The importance of sleep, diet, and exercise. When we talk about prioritizing your self care, mental health, of course, I'm going to talk about this. You got to take care of yourself by engaging in activities that are really promoting relaxation and your mental well being. So, what relaxes you? What is it in your life that really helps you feel chilled out? Is it reading books? Is it meditating? Is it sitting outside? Is it drinking a cup of maybe it's decaf coffee or decaf tea, before you go to bed or, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? What is it for you? Is it walking? Is it being with your pets? Is it petting your cat, petting your dogs? Is it volunteering? Are you going to a stable where you're doing equine therapy, helping kids? Like, think about what really relaxes you. Maybe what really relaxes you is your basketball league. Maybe you play basketball, maybe it's pickleball at 6 p.m. after a day's work, that's something that you really enjoy. Think about what it is that really helps you with your mental well-being. Okay? That's you taking care of yourself. That's you managing your stress.
Checking, just being able to check out, right?
Yeah.
Just
Totally
take
checking out.
yourself out of the game for a
Yeah.
second and
Checking out from your kids,
yeah,
from your spouse, from your work. It's something that you do for you. For me, it's running. Just it's running. And you and I run together a lot, but there are times when I want to run by myself. I don't want to run. I want to turn my music on and I want to just listen to my music and I want to run. I don't want to have someone next to me. I just need to be alone.
right.
That's important to me. For me, my self care is time alone. I need to be alone in my thoughts, alone in the bedroom, meditating. That's where I meditate, but that's really, really important for me to manage my stress. For all of you, think about what it is that really helps you feel relaxed. And if you have forgotten, spend time around what that is for you. If you've forgotten, that alone ought to tell you that there's an issue here. You need to remember and put it back into your schedule. Write it into your schedule. Okay.
It's a good tip.
So, number 3 is that time management, which I mentioned earlier. So, this is, focusing on the most important tasks first and then break them into larger projects and manageable steps. So, this is the big rocks theory, put the big rocks in first. What are the most important things that you've got to do each day, each week? Those are the big rocks that go in the jar, and then the little rocks that go around it that are not top priority, but they're priorities. You need to get to them, but what are the big ones first? Okay. So that's really important. This will help you feel less overwhelmed in your daily life and in your weekly life. Okay. So really, really important. Big rocks first, the smaller ones next. And where possible, we've got to do a better job of delegating. So delegating to others. So I always say this to my coaching clients. And if you've been in a group coaching program, I'm going to say this. There's 3 buckets here. So what are the must do's that only I can do? I must do this. Only I can do it. So, like for example, for me, I am the face of my brand. So only I with you, but only I really can show up on this podcast. It's Badass Confidence Coach. That's Anna. Only I can show up and be of service and counsel and coach my clients who pay me for individual coaching and individual therapy. That's me. Only I can do that. Um, so that's me. What are other things that, let's say, I can delegate to other people? That can be cleaning the house. That can be the the runnings of the business behind the scenes. A lot of that is you. I've got social media person. I've got a podcast person. Those are things editing. Um, those are things that Anna doesn't have to do, that other people do, that I hire and pay others to do. And there are other parts of my life. So that's a second bucket, delegating to others. A third bucket is, what do I need to take off my list? So this is really, really important. So there are things that I have been doing that I no longer need to do. And that, let's say, gosh, what has it been for me over the years? Um, oh, well, cleaning the house. I don't need to clean the house. We can hire somebody to clean the house. It no longer needs to be something that Anna needs to do. I don't have to do it at all. And that, let's break that down. Doing the laundry, folding the laundry, cooking the meals. That used to be almost all of me. You've always helped with laundry, but I was always the cook of this house with the kids and us. I don't always do that anymore. The kids have moved out, and sometimes now you cook because I don't need to be doing it. So there's there's 3 buckets. What is it that only you can do, that you must do? What can you delegate to others is the second bucket. The third bucket is, what can you get rid of? What do you no longer need to be doing? And that's really, really important for you and your time management. Okay. So think about that delegation.
Yeah. I'm trying
You're
to
staring at me this whole
well,
time. What are you thinking?
I'm trying to get the difference between the delegating and the get rid of. So delegating, you're having someone else do something that's necessary, but getting rid of,
It's not necessary. It doesn't need to be in your life.
it doesn't need to get done. So it's no longer a thing that needs to get
Yeah.
completed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be in your life anymore. So for me, maybe it's a digital detox. Maybe it's, I need to get rid of all the time that I had been spending on social media, doom scrolling, wasting my time. That has gone. I don't do that anymore. I
Yeah.
don't, spend a lot of time, like I said earlier, looking at other people's feeds who are in my space of coaching. I don't need to do that. That's actually not even good for me.
Right.
Put your blinders on, focus straight ahead, keep going. Stop looking to the sides. I always think of the racehorses that have the blinders on. That keeps them looking straight and not looking all around at their competition, at the other horses, and getting distracted. Put the blinders on, go, move ahead. And that's what I have done. That's been really helpful to my mental health and my mental well being.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for 5 years, I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard for purity and potency. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950
50 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional basis and setting myself up for success in just 60 seconds. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Anna. That's drinkag1.com/Anna. Check it out. You will not regret it.
So, number one, set clear boundaries. Number two, prioritize self care. Number three, time management. That's the three buckets. Okay. Number four, seek support. Get social support for time management. Really connect with others, spend time with family and friends, the people that who can provide you the emotional support that you need. Talk through your feelings. This can really reduce that sense of isolation that often accompanies going into burnout. So, I sought a lot of support from you. The two times I have burned out bad in my career was, gosh, I was back in my 20s. I was working in a neonatal intensive care unit. Worked in maternal and child health at a large hospital down the city, Chicago. I was in the pediatric ICU and I was in the neonatal intensive care unit. I was also on the regular peds unit. So I saw, unfortunately, a lot of drug abuse babies, a lot of cocaine babies, a lot of heroin babies, and I saw a lot of child abuse, a lot of child abuse. And I also covered the emergency room, and I had the child abuse cases throughout the entire hospital. So if there was a child abuse case that would come in through other ways, that was me. I was in charge of the suspected child abuse and neglect team at this hospital. And this is before I had kids, and I just had a different mindset around working with the parents. Really, it was the parents around, what was going on, how and why did the child abuse occur. I was, always dealing with the Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, here in Chicago. Got to know many of those investigators and workers very well because they were always at the hospital. So that was a big part of my job. And then also seeing these babies being born, and watching them detox off of heroin was a terrible thing to watch. Um, Cocaine, but mostly the heroin was really very horrific to watch, and the methadone babies. So I did that for years, and I didn't realize the accumulation of the stress on me and how much it would take its toll. And it wasn't until, and even when I was pregnant with my first child, it didn't affect me. It wasn't until I went back to work after my first child was born. So I went back to work 3 months postpartum, and it was dramatic, the changes in me. I could no longer watch these babies withdrawing from drugs and no longer witness the mostly it was medical neglect and environmental neglect, but I did see child abuse, physical abuse, some really bad things. And I lost all objectivity. I could no longer even objectively talk to these parents, interview them, and I had burned out. I couldn't see, so I saw quite a few deaths. I also was the person. I also saw stillborn births of babies who had died. I had a partner with me who was like my work wife, and we were best friends. We were true partners because we were the only two members of their maternal and child health was a huge, huge department that also encompassed postpartum, antepartum for high risk pregnancies, labor and delivery. It was a massive part of the hospital, and there were two of us. And she was wonderful, but she was also running around like a chicken with her head cut off, very busy. And it wasn't until after Samantha was born that I realized I couldn't do this anymore, and I truly burned out. There was not money in the budget, as there often is not for social work counselors. The money goes to, of course, staffing the nurses and the doctors, but not for social work and counseling. And I needed help, and I couldn't get the help, and I couldn't handle the emotional toll and the load on me, and that I burned out, and I quit. I just quit, and I missed, working in hospitals. You really become a family. You are a team. And I missed those nurses. I missed the doctors. I missed the neonatologists. I missed the pediatricians. I missed all of them. And I really struggled when I quit my job. I became a stay-at-home mom. And later I'd go back very part-time, but that's when I went into a group practice, and it was a very different type of work. Um, but I missed those people, and I get emotional talking about it right now. It's weird. I haven't, I haven't, uh, I haven't worked with those people in 27 years, but there you go. That was a that was
Yeah.
that was an intense job and one I loved, and I burnt out. And then I burnt out when I was married to you, and I worked in oncology. And
That was a rough time.
so I
That's for darn sure.
yeah, so I
The
burnt out there too.
Yeah. Those
I
is
didn't burn out in my practice. I didn't burn out my private practice, and that was eating disorders, depression, anxiety, performance. So this was therapy and coaching. I've not burned out here because I did burn out with some of the axis 2 personality disorders. I was seeing quite a few borderline personality disordered individuals, and narcissists. You don't see as much. Narcissists don't really go to therapy because they don't think they need therapy.
I'm good.
Yeah, narcissists come to therapy only when they're threatened. Narcissists will come to therapy when they're being threatened, something with their work. Usually, it's the end of the breakup of a marriage, and then you'll get the partner will come in who is a narcissist. But that's more rare. You'll see borderlines in therapy because borderlines are really in quite a bit of pain. They're struggling with relationships in their lives. They find they're divorced, or they have no friends, or they just have relationship fractured relationships in their lives. And I was seeing quite a few borderlines, and I'll never forget a very well known trauma therapist, a celebrity in the field of trauma, who I was working with on a case. We were both seeing, I was seeing the girlfriend, she was seeing the boyfriend. And then never forget her saying to me, who we actually saw her best friend in California. We were there last week, happened to run into a boutique store owner who asks me where I'm from. I tell her from Chicago. She says, "You know so and so?" I said, "Yes." Weird.
So weird.
What are the chances of that? And she said, "She's here right now at a trauma conference, and she's going to be here this afternoon to visit me." And so she made me videotape me saying hello to her. And here I am in this woman's store in Solana Beach, California. And do you remember this case we had? So she said to me,
20 some years ago.
how weird is that? She said to me, well, this case wasn't 20 years ago. She said to me, how many borderlines you have in your practice? And I said, I don't know how many I had at the time. And I said to her, I'm burning out on this. And she said, you can't have more than 2 borderlines in your practice at a time, Anna, or you will burn out and you're going to end up leaving the field. I'll never forget her saying that to me. And she wasn't wrong. And I respected her a ton. And I started to work on it as best I could, trying to prevent seeing people, with all due respect to people with borderline personality, some of the most wonderful, amazing personality people, but there's a dysregulation, and it's a whole thing. That's a whole other podcast episode about how difficult it can be to work with people who have borderline personality disorder. But so I took care of that, and I didn't burn out with that, but I burned out later when I worked in oncology. And so once again, this is a large clinic. This is another hospital now on the North Shore of Chicago. And I was the only therapist and for a large clinic. And I got referred all the stage 4 cancer diagnoses, stage 3 and stage 4. So I was running a support group for young moms with cancer, managing your cancer when you have kids. So I was running the support group. I was on call for the emergency room, and I got called to see all the cancer patients throughout the hospital. Plus, I was the therapist counselor for this large clinic. I did it, for only 5 years.
Yeah.
And how did I know that I was burning out? Because I was talking about my own death a lot. I found myself thinking about my death, dying, thinking about my funeral. And here I was in my late 30s, early 40s. And I was going to funerals of patients who had died, of families that I gotten really close to, which I didn't tell my boss this. I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but I was taking time to go to these funerals and these shivas and these wakes. Probably not a good thing to do for my own mental health. So, and there was no room in the budget to hire another person because we really needed help. I needed help. I couldn't continue to do this. And this is what happens is you lose good people. And I miss those nurses. I love them. I'm still friends with them. It's so funny as we're uh, recording right now before we got on, I see a text from a good friend of mine who's an oncology nurse. Um, that's where I
From
got to
back
know
in the
her from
day?
back then. And she just texted me this morning, when are we getting together? So,
Yeah.
you know, the nursing teams, the medical teams that I worked with, the multidisciplinary teams, I miss all those individuals so much. And I love being a part of a multiple disciplinary team. But the work, and I know that we love our nurses and we love our healthcare providers, but I think, and I'm going to say this, we often forget about the counselors. We often forget about the social workers who are on those units because they're the ones who are working their asses off, who carry the emotional toll. Because not only was I counseling the patients' families, which took its toll on me, and the nurses and the secretaries and the admins are so amazing. We were so tight. They'd know that I was upset or something had gotten to me because they'd go in my office and they'd shut the door, and before you knew it, I'd hear a, and they'd come in,
Yeah.
"Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" And they would take care of me because they really felt for me because they knew that, okay, they knew the families too, and they knew that I had heard something, and they knew the load that I was carrying. But I often would counsel them as well because they needed it, and they didn't want to go to, I don't know who was even available to them. It wasn't HR, it wasn't EAP. They wanted to talk to me because we were such a tight team. All that to say, I burned out and I was not managing. I did not know how to manage, you know, seeing these patients, their families, because it needed to be done. I There needed to be more of a counseling team, and there wasn't the budget for it. So what happens is you lose good people. And I've seen really good therapists leave the hospital system for the very reason I left. And I would think, damn, we're losing a good person. But there was no more money for them because hospitals don't value the counselors as much. They have to have nurses and they have to have these great doctors and great nursing teams who I
Do
love.
you think that's changed? Do you think they realize it now?
No, I don't think it's changed. It's not a value. It's not going to change. I don't think it's going to change. And
Hmm.
I often think, I was just thinking last week how much I would love to go back into a hospital system. I would go back and I would do it again, but they can't afford me anymore. They can't afford me and they would never pay me what I'm worth. They would never pay me. So they will refer outside if they think to. They refer to, this isn't happening as much. It was happening the years after I left, but, you know, the nurses are so busy and maybe the social workers will refer out, but they're not thinking about the mental health part. They got other things that they need to be doing and they ought to be doing and they are doing. No, I don't think that's going to change. It's just not a priority.
And
Medicine
it's
is number one and healthcare is number one. The actual medicine of in oncology, keeping somebody alive and helping them to get out of the infusion room. So no longer, receiving chemo and radiation in that case. Um,
I think it's short sighted. I really
yeah.
do.
I mean, you and I can say that all day long. That's not
I
changing.
get it. I
Yeah.
get it. But it's like if you're truly preaching that you are in it to support people that are dealing with something, sick, ill, whatever it is, and their families, like that whole part and their families, that stuff's never going to go away. It's never
I
going to change.
loved that job.
Yeah.
I loved working in oncology with the cancer patients and their families. I loved it. I loved that job. Yes, it took its toll on me, and I'm saying I would go back. They can't afford me anymore. I do because they pay so very little. I have to tell you all who are listening and watching, I mean, the pay is a joke. Like it is. It just is. Okay. It is. Um, and if you're higher up in the hospital administration field or you're CEO of a corporation, you need to hear this because you got to pay these people more. We have master's degrees and we paid so much for our master's degrees and, all the clinical experience that we have, and you're not paying these people enough money. That's why, mental health field in general is burnt
Yeah.
out from COVID.
And I think we've all been in a hospital. We've all visited a doctor. We know the money that changes hands between the insurance and the hospital, the insurance and the docs, right? We know the money. It's wild money.
There's not a value put on the mental health part. There
Yeah.
just really isn't.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, when it comes to stress management, for me, at that time, I had great coworkers. I loved my job. I had my marriage was good. I mean, for me, and this might be for you too, sometimes the way to manage your stress and to not get burnt out is you got to leave the job. You got to do something different. So for me, I burned out when I worked in the peds intensive care unit and the neonatal intensive care unit. And they did say at the time, because I was working in so much child abuse in Chicago was the average employee was there for 2 years. And so there you go. I stayed longer than that. Um, in oncology, the answer for me, while I wasn't getting help and I had this massive caseload, the answer for me was I needed to leave. I did burn out, and I don't know how I would have managed that differently because everything else in my life was going well. I was training for triathlon. I had all kinds of outlets. It just was the acuity of the level of work I was doing, I could no longer do.
Yeah.
So that was the answer, and that may be the answer for some of you is you need to do something different. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. Get a plan together, and if you need help with that, reach out to me. I can help you with that. This is a lot of what I do as a coach, okay? Um, so really, really important. So this is number 4 is seeking social support. And I had social support around, especially in the later years in working in oncology. And the answer for me in burning out was I did burn out and I needed to move on and do something different. Okay. So the next one is to evaluate your workload. I've already sort of talked about it. You know, my workload was too much. You think for yourself about your workload, yours, speak up about it, talk to your boss. And I did that in both of these cases when I worked in peds and when I worked in oncology. And my boss has said, Anna, there's no more money. There's no money here. We're not hiring another person. Unfortunately, and they would try to talk to me about, my workload, but even they would shrug and they're like, yeah, we know too. We know
Yeah.
you have to see these patients. You're getting referred to these patients. You work in a hospital, you have to see them. So speak up about it though, because maybe for you in your line of work, you can employ some help. Okay. Maybe your employer, your boss can help bring in, your manager can help bring in someone to help you or can take some tasks off of your plate and delegate it to somebody else. Okay. That's really important for you. So communicate with your employer if you're noticing your workload is consistently unmanageable. All right.
Yeah. And I
And
don't
go
this
ahead.
is not exclusive to the hospital world.
No, not, no.
This is
Right.
I mean, seen this firsthand
Hmm.
very, very recently,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
know. Yeah.
And it's like if the employer would take a second, hit pause for a second and just really drill down on what's going on, I think some of the stuff can be fixed
Yeah.
and should be fixed. And unfortunately, everybody's going 1,000 miles an hour and they're worried about the bottom line, being very good for their business or their organization, and they forget
Right.
about who are the ones that are getting you there,
Right.
right? And
Right.
how badly are you dragging them through the mud because they're barely holding on, and then they leave and everybody turns around and is like, well, why did that person leave? Like, what? It's just,
So here's what's different today versus, when I was speaking, that was the 90s and the 2000s. Here's what's different. Employers are increasingly recognizing the mental health issues and needs of their employees. So they may be more willing today, and they ought to be more willing today to adjust responsibilities and to do workarounds and not to, affect the integrity of the work, just do it differently, like delegate and find other people who can come in and help adjust the responsibilities because that is what's different today
yeah,
is mental health
yeah,
is being looked at
yeah.
in a different way.
Willing to offer lunch and learns or, access to somebody that you can go and chat with, as an employee.
Yeah, and doing hybrid work. That's a big change. Really since COVID, I'm noticing that even people are allowed to have one day at home. Hey, that does make a difference.
Yeah.
When you can wake up and you can start working, but you got your sweats on and you can throw a load of laundry in. That's think about the time we spend at work that we're actually chit-chatting and kind of air quote wasting time. And my clients tell me all the time, you know, the work I get done when I'm at home versus when I'm in the office. So that's an adjustment that has been made, and it really is helping people's mental well-being.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on because we could continue to talk. Mindfulness and relaxation techniques are another way to really work on managing your stress. Many of you already know this. You mean mindfulness practices, such as deep breathing, meditation, go to yoga, get that into your routine. That really does help with stress. I find yoga is massive. It is so helpful. Meditation for me personally has really been game changing for me. I know that I'm using that term a lot today, but it really has. So meditation, working on box breathing, that's really important. Breathe, breathe. I find that we're not breathing. We're often like shallow breath, really work on that, okay? That's helpful. Uh, like I said earlier, relaxation techniques. Do what helps you unwind, reading, listening to music, spending time in nature. And the last one is reassessing your goals and expectations for yourself. I mean, really reevaluate your personal and professional goals to ensure that they are realistic and achievable. Okay. Sometimes we get ourselves into burnout because we're shooting way, way, way high, but that's okay. But maybe you need to shoot for the medium. You got to go here versus before you go way up here. Okay. And if it's not realistic for you right now, that's why you got to oftentimes bring in a third party, bring in an objective person who says, wait, 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 that's okay to have that big goal, but maybe that's something that needs to be a year's goal. What are you going to do in the next 3 months? That can help you move away from burnout. Okay. Unattainable goals can really lead to unnecessary stress and burnout. And I know I've been there. I've had unattainable goals that I wanted to get done in 2 months when it was really like, a year and a half plan. All right. And keep that positive mindset, cultivate that positive outlook by focusing on what you can control and practicing gratitude. Okay. That will really help you take a step back, take a deep breath, and having a gratitude for, where you are today in your life. That does help manage stress. Okay. So I'm going to go back over them, write these down. Okay. Go back and listen to this. So the ways for you to reduce burnout in your life and to manage that stress is number one, set clear boundaries. Number two, prioritize your self care. Number three, manage your time well or better than you already are. Four, seek social support. Number five, evaluate your workload. Six, practice mindfulness and relaxation techniques. Number seven, reassess your goals and expectations. Okay. So, this is a really great way for you to start working on reducing stress in your life, in your work life, in your personal life, and preventing that burnout. Try not to get to where I got to twice in my career where I totally burned out. If you can, try to make changes ahead of time. And if you're burning out, and if you are burnt out and you're listening to this, then maybe this is the time for you to really rethink what you're doing. And maybe you need to make major changes in your life. Maybe it's a new career. Maybe it's a new relationship. Okay.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a
Okay.
lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So reach out to me. I have some openings for coaching. I've got a group coaching course that's going to be starting in it's maybe a couple of months away now. But if you're interested in the group coaching, reach out to me at hello@annamarcolene.com. Get on the waiting list because I'm keeping these group coaching courses small. I want it to be intimate and I want it to be something where they're just so great. These group coaching courses, it's a less expensive price for I'm giving you all the good stuff that I have been utilizing in my therapy and coaching practice. You're getting it all, but you're getting it at a reduced price. And these small group coaching classes are so great because people really get to know each other and it's intimate. It's really lovely. So if you are interested in that, email me. If you want individual coaching, email me. And please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast with 5 stars. Okay. Mad love, everyone. Hope that this was helpful. Until next time.
All right.